The bridge of the Vorthak dreadnought had become a scene of desperate confusion. Captain Kelmore watched his fleet being systematically outmaneuvered by human ships that appeared and vanished like ghosts in space. His officers shouted conflicting reports while their most advanced sensors failed to provide useful targeting information. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet," the communications officer announced. "They are requesting to speak with you directly." Kelmore's forearms clenched into fists. Speaking with the enemy while his fleet was trapped and helpless would be the ultimate humiliation. But he had no choice. His ships were blind, his weapons were disabled, and 17 Vorthak vessels were at the mercy of a human force they could not even count accurately. "Put them through," he commanded. The main display screen flickered and showed the bridge of a human ship. Commander Lee Taemin stood at the center of the image, no longer the frightened prisoner Kelmore remembered. Behind him, human officers worked at control stations that looked primitive compared to Vorthak crystal technology, but were clearly far more effective. "Captain Kelmore," Taemin said with calm courtesy, "I believe we need to discuss the current situation." "What do you want, human?" Kelmore growled. "If you plan to destroy my fleet, then do it. Vorthak warriors do not beg for mercy." "I'm not interested in destroying your fleet," Taemin replied, which surprised everyone on the alien bridge. "In fact, I have a proposal that will benefit both our species far more than continued warfare." Lieutenant Kim Jae-ho and Sergeant Choi Min-jun had successfully reached the extraction point where human transport ships waited to retrieve them. Their months of undercover work had provided intelligence that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. But more importantly, they had proven that human strategic thinking could overcome any technological disadvantage. The stealth device specifications have been fully downloaded and transmitted to our research teams, Jae-ho reported to his commanders. "We also have complete structural analysis of Vorthak ship designs and tactical doctrines." "Excellent work," came the reply from Dr. Park So-young, who was now aboard the human flagship. "But that was only the first objective. Phase 7 is now beginning." Back on the Vorthak bridge, Captain Kelmore struggled to understand what the human commander was proposing. "You want to share the stealth technology with us? Why would you give back something you fought so hard to steal?" Taemin smiled, and for the first time it seemed genuinely friendly rather than calculated. "Because humans don't just think about winning individual battles, Captain. We think about winning the war that matters most." On the display screen behind Taemin, star charts appeared showing the galaxy's outer regions. Strange energy signatures were highlighted in red, indicating something that both human and Vorthak forces had detected but neither fully understood. 3 months ago, our deep space monitoring stations began detecting artificial signals from beyond the galactic rim, Taemin explained. "The signals are clearly technological in origin and they're getting stronger. Something is coming toward our galaxy and it's not friendly." Engineer specialist Yang Hye-jin, still monitoring from her asteroid base, confirmed the data transmission. "Captain Kelmore, our analysis suggests these signals represent a machine intelligence of unknown capabilities. The energy patterns are unlike anything produced by organic life." Captain Kelmore studied the information carefully. His people had detected similar signals, but had not shared the data with human forces. The possibility that both species faced a common threat had never occurred to him. "Why should the Vorthak trust humans?" he asked. "Your people have just demonstrated that you can deceive us completely. How do we know this is not another strategic manipulation?" "Because," Taemin replied, "humans understand something that your people haven't learned yet. The strongest position is not the one where you defeat all your enemies. The strongest position is the one where you turn your enemies into allies." This concept was difficult for Vorthak minds to accept. Their entire culture was built around competition and dominance. The idea of cooperation with a defeated enemy seemed like weakness. But Taemin continued his explanation with information that made Captain Kelmore reconsider everything. "Our combined fleets will be stronger than either could be alone. Vorthak weapons technology paired with human strategic thinking creates capabilities that neither species could achieve separately." Dr. Park So-young appeared on the communication channel, speaking from her position on the human flagship. "Captain Kelmore, We propose a joint defense alliance. Your people provide advanced weapons and ship construction capabilities. Our people provide tactical coordination and adaptive strategy development. The stealth technology you developed will be improved by our engineers and shared equally between both fleets, she continued. Instead of using it to attack each other's colonies, we'll use it to defend against whatever is approaching from outside our galaxy. The Vorthak captain was silent for long minutes, considering options that challenged everything his species believed about warfare and diplomacy. His officers watched nervously, knowing that their lives depended on the decision he made. Finally, Kelmore spoke. Human Commander, your species has shown capabilities we did not expect. Perhaps there is wisdom in your proposal, but how can we trust each other after so much deception? The same way humans and Vorthak have always learned to trust each other, Taemin answered. By working together toward a common goal that benefits everyone. Over the following weeks, human and Vorthak engineers worked side by side to integrate their technologies. The stealth devices were improved and installed on ships from both fleets. Tactical databases were shared and combined. Most importantly, the two species began learning how their different approaches to problem-solving could complement each other. Captain Kelmore found himself working closely with human strategic planners, including Taemin himself. The alien officer was amazed by how humans could see patterns and possibilities that Vorthak minds missed completely. Your people think in ways we cannot predict, Kelmore admitted during one planning session. We focus on building stronger weapons and thicker armor. You focus on understanding your enemy's mind and using that knowledge against them. That's exactly right, Taemin replied. Vorthak technology is impressive, but technology alone never wins wars. Understanding wins. Wars. A strategy wins wars. The ability to think 3 steps ahead of your opponent wins wars. The combined human Vorthak fleet was now stronger than either force had been alone. Ships with crystal hulls and advanced energy weapons worked alongside vessels equipped with human adaptive computers and tactical systems. The stealth technology had been improved far beyond what either species could have achieved separately. But the real test came when the signals from beyond the galaxy suddenly increased in strength and frequency. Long-range sensors detected massive objects moving through space at incredible speeds. Whatever was approaching was larger and more powerful than anything either humans or Vorthak had ever encountered. The machine intelligence has begun its approach, Yang, Hyjin reported from her monitoring station. Estimated arrival time at our outer colonies is 6 months. The fleet composition appears to be entirely artificial constructs, with energy outputs that exceed our current defensive capabilities. Dr. Park So-young studied the incoming data with growing concern. These machines have been traveling between galaxies for millions of years. They appear to consume all organic life they encounter and convert planetary resources into more machines. Captain Kelmore turned to Taemin with something that might have been respect in his crystalline features. You planned this alliance knowing that both our species would need each other to survive what is coming. Human strategic thinking doesn't just focus on immediate threats, Taemin confirmed. We look for patterns that others miss. We plan for possibilities that others ignore. When we saw evidence of this machine intelligence, we realized that the war between humans and Vorthak was actually helping our real enemy. By keeping us fighting each other, the machines could attack a divided galaxy. Kelmore understood. But, by working together, we present a unified defense that they did not expect. The combined fleet began moving toward the galaxy's outer rim, where the first contact with the machine intelligence would likely occur. Human strategic planners worked with Vorthak tactical specialists to develop defensive positions that use the best capabilities of both species. As they traveled toward what might be the most important battle in galactic history, Taemin reflected on how completely the situation had changed. What had begun as a mission to steal alien technology had become something far more significant, the foundation of an alliance that might save all organic life in the galaxy. Commander Taemin, Captain Kelmore said as they stood together on the bridge of their combined flagship. When this crisis began, I thought I was capturing a weak human prisoner. Now I understand that you were never really my prisoner at all. No, Taemin agreed. I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I needed to do. That's what human strategy really means. We don't just adapt to situations as they happen. We create the situations we need. Dr. Park So-young's voice came through the communication system from the human comm. The Vorthak ship shuddered as power failures spread through its systems. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows in the corridors while alarms screamed warnings about multiple system breaches. Captain Kelmore's carefully ordered vessel had become a maze of chaos and confusion. In the cargo bay, Science Officer Morden frantically worked to access Tae-min's ship computer, while sparks flew from damaged control panels around them. The alien's forearms moved quickly across human interfaces. That seemed simple but hid incredible complexity. "Show me where this weapon data is stored," Morden demanded, his voice tight with desperation. "My ship is falling apart around us, and you claim to have information that could save the Empire." Tae-min moved to his ship's control console, his fingers dancing across keys in patterns that looked random, but were actually precise commands. "The data is encrypted in the navigation core. I need to enter my personal access codes to unlock it." What Morden could not see was that each keystroke was actually activating hidden subroutines throughout the ship's computer network. The weapon data Tae-min was accessing was really a master control program that connected to every system the three human agents had compromised over the past months. Deep in the ship's engineering section, Lieutenant Kim Jae-ho fought running battles with Vorthak security forces while continuing his sabotage mission. The aliens had finally realized that their trusted human maintenance worker was actually an enemy agent, but the discovery had come too late. Jae-ho moved through the crystal corridors with deadly efficiency. His months of service had taught him exactly how Vorthak soldiers thought and fought. Every tactical doctrine they used had been studied and countered by human military planners. "The human is heading for the stealth device prototype. 1 Vorthak," officer shouted into his communicator. "All units converge on Engineering Section 7. But Jae-ho was already there. The stealth device sat in a secured chamber, surrounded by energy barriers and guarded by automated defense systems. To the Vorthak, it was perfectly protected. To a human who had spent months learning every detail of their security protocols, it was simply another puzzle to solve. Jae-ho attached a small device to the main control panel. This was not a bomb or a conventional weapon. It was something far more dangerous to the Vorthak Empire. A complete recording and analysis system that would capture every detail of their most advanced technology. Meanwhile, Sergeant Choi Min-jun had taken control of the ship's armory and was systematically disabling weapon systems throughout the vessel. The Vorthak had trained him to maintain their equipment, never imagining that he was learning how to destroy it from within. "Security breach in weapons storage," Min-jun heard over the ship's communication system. "The human prisoner has escaped and is sabotaging critical systems." Min-jun smiled grimly as he continued his work. The aliens still thought there was only one human threat aboard their ship. They had no idea that their loyal servants had been enemy agents all along. In the cargo bay, Tae-min's performance as a frightened prisoner finally came to an end. As data flowed from his ship's computer to Morden's analysis equipment, the science officer began to realize that something was terribly wrong. "This is not weapon data," Morden said, his voice filled with growing horror. "These are complete schematics of our ship's systems. You have been mapping our technology from the moment you came aboard." Tae-min straightened up, and for the first time since his capture, his voice carried no trace of fear or uncertainty. "You're right. I have been studying your ship, your weapons, your defenses, your tactics. Everything you've shown me has been carefully recorded and analyzed." The transformation was startling. The weak, frightened human prisoner was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating military officer who radiated quiet confidence. Morden took a step backward, suddenly understanding how completely he had been deceived. "You wanted to capture a human," Tae-min continued, his voice steady and calm despite the chaos around them. "You thought we were weak because our ships look simple. You believed we were cowards because we avoid direct confrontation. You assumed we were primitive because we use basic materials and old-fashioned designs." Outside the ship, the Vorthak fleet was discovering that their assumptions about human capabilities had been dangerously wrong. Ships that had seemed to vanish were now revealing themselves to be advanced human vessels using stealth technology that made Vorthak's sensors useless. Every piece of information I gave you was carefully chosen, Taman explained as he continued working at his control console. Every moment of weakness you saw was planned and rehearsed. You have been fighting a war against an enemy you completely misunderstood. Engineer Specialist Yang Hyejin, monitoring from her hidden asteroid base, watched as the human fleet executed a perfect tactical maneuver around the confused Vorthak ships. Her screens showed 17 alien vessels trying to fight an enemy they could not see or understand. All human ships, this is Monitor 7, she broadcast on secure channels. Target vessel has uploaded complete stealth device specifications. Repeat, the package has been delivered. All objectives achieved. Back on Earth, Dr. Park So-young received confirmation that the mission had succeeded beyond their most optimistic expectations. Not only had they acquired the Vorthak stealth technology, but they had also demonstrated something far more important. Human strategic thinking operated on a level that alien races had never encountered. On the Vorthak ship, Captain Kelmore arrived in the cargo bay just in time to see his science officer backing away from a human who no longer seemed like a prisoner. The captain's forearms reached for weapons but froze when he saw what was displayed on the ship's monitors. Human vessels surrounded the Vorthak fleet. The aliens were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and completely at the mercy of an enemy they had thought was weak and primitive. Their advanced weapons were useless against opponents they could not target. Their superior technology meant nothing when they could not coordinate their responses. How is this possible? Kelmore demanded. Your species builds simple ships with basic weapons. You have no experience with advanced warfare. Taman looked at the alien captain with something that might have been pity. You made the same mistake that every enemy of humanity eventually makes. You focused on what we build instead of how we think. The ship shuddered again as more systems failed. In the engineering section, Jae-ho had completed his mission and was fighting his way toward the rendezvous point. In the armory, Min-jun had finished disabling the ship's defensive capabilities and was preparing for extraction. Your people are good at building powerful weapons, Taman continued. Your technology is impressive. Your ships are strong. But you think like Vorthak, which means you think in straight lines. Humans think in spirals. Captain Kelmore stared at his prisoner, beginning to understand the scope of the deception that had been practiced upon his entire fleet. This had never been about rescuing a lost scout or interrogating a captured soldier. From the very beginning, the humans had been executing a complex strategy that turned Vorthak's strengths into weaknesses and Vorthak assumptions into fatal blind spots. The war between the species had just taken a turn that would change everything. The alarm in Tai-min's cell woke him before dawn. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the ship, and he could hear the sound of running footsteps in the corridors outside. Something had gone wrong with the Vorthak fleet, and the aliens were panicking. Captain Kelmore's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. All crew to battle stations. We are detecting unknown energy signatures. Prepare for possible hostile contact. Taman smiled quietly in his cell. The unknown energy signatures were actually human ships using new stealth technology that the Vorthak had never encountered before. Dr. Park So-young's team had finally made their move. 2 guards came to Taman's cell, their weapons ready. The captain wants to see you immediately, one of them said. If your people are responsible for this, you will pay with your life. They escorted him quickly through corridors filled with running crew members. The ship buzzed with activity as Vorthak soldiers prepared for battle, but Taman noticed something the aliens had missed. In all the confusion, security protocols had been relaxed. Doors that were normally locked stood open. Guard positions had been abandoned. On the bridge, Captain Kelmore stood before a massive display showing the surrounding space. His forearms moved frantically across control panels as he tried to understand what was happening to his fleet. Human, Kelmore growled when Taman was brought before him. Our sensors are detecting ships that appear and disappear like ghosts. Your people have developed new technology. Tell me how it works. Taman made his face look confused and frightened. I don't know anything about ghost ships. My people don't have that kind of technology. Maybe you're seeing asteroids or space debris? Do not lie to me, the captain roared. 3 of our patrol ships have lost contact with the fleet. Something is hunting us, and it uses technology we cannot understand. While this confrontation continued on the bridge, Lieutenant Kim Jae-ho was moving through the ship's lower levels. The emergency alert had given him the perfect opportunity to access restricted areas. Maintenance workers were allowed to go anywhere during emergencies to check for damage. Jae-ho reached the main power distribution center, a room filled with crystal conduits that carried energy throughout the massive ship. He had studied these systems for months, learning how they worked and where they were most vulnerable. From his tool belt, he pulled out what appeared to be a standard repair scanner. The Vorthak had given him this device to help diagnose problems with ship systems. They had no idea that human engineers had modified it extensively before Jae-ho began his undercover mission. The scanner connected to the power grid's control computer. To any observer, it would look like Jae-ho was checking for electrical problems. In reality, he was uploading a virus that would cause cascading system failures throughout the ship. Meanwhile, Sergeant Choi Min-jun had reached the ship's armory. His job was to maintain and organize the Vorthak weapons, so his presence there during an emergency would seem normal. The aliens trusted him completely after months of loyal service. Min-jun moved quickly through the weapon storage areas. He knew exactly where each type of equipment was kept and how to disable the security systems that protected them. His goal was not to steal weapons, but to prevent the Vorthak from using them effectively when the real attack began. Back on the bridge, Science Officer Morden approached Captain Kelmore with a concerned expression. "Sir, I believe we should question the human prisoner more carefully. Perhaps he knows more than he is saying." "An excellent idea," Kelmore agreed. "Take him to the interrogation chamber. Use the deep scan equipment. I want to know everything he is hiding." Taemin allowed himself to look terrified as the guards prepared to take him away. This was exactly what he had been hoping for. The interrogation chamber was located near the ship's computer core and engineering sections. It was the perfect place to begin the next phase of his mission. As they walked through the ship, Taemin noticed that his coded messages on the walls had been seen and understood. Small scratches near doorways told him that Jae-ho and Min-jun were in position and ready to act. The interrogation chamber was a frightening place filled with machines designed to extract information from unwilling prisoners. Crystal devices, hummed with energy that could cause intense pain, or read thoughts directly from a victim's mind. "Sit in the chair," Morden commanded, pointing to a device that looked like a torture instrument. "This machine will show us everything you are hiding." "Resistance is impossible." Taemin sat down slowly, making his whole body shake with fear. "Please don't hurt me. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I have information about a secret human weapon." Morden stopped preparing his equipment and turned to look at the prisoner. "What kind of weapon?" "It's hidden in my ship's computer," Taemin whispered. "The navigation data I showed you was fake. The real files contain information about a new type of bomb that can destroy entire fleets. Human Command told me to keep it secret even if I was captured." This was exactly what the Vorthak wanted to hear. They were always eager to learn about human military capabilities, especially secret weapons that could be used against other enemies of the Empire. "Take me to his ship immediately," Morden ordered the guards. "If this human is telling the truth, we must extract this information before his people realize we have it." As they rushed back toward the cargo bay, Taemin sent one final coded signal by tapping his fingers against his leg in a specific pattern. The message was simple: "Execute Phase 4 now." Throughout the ship, that signal was received and understood. The 3 human agents had spent 8 months preparing for this moment. Everything they had learned about Vorthak technology and security protocols was about to be put to use. In the power distribution center, Jae-ho activated the virus he had uploaded to the ship's systems. Warning lights began flashing as power conduits started overloading in carefully planned sequences. In the armory, Min-jun disabled the security locks on the main weapon storage areas. Alarms began sounding as the ship's computer detected unauthorized access to restricted equipment. And in the interrogation chamber they had just left, automated systems began broadcasting the location and specifications of the Vorthak stealth technology to hidden transmitters throughout the ship. Captain Kelmore's voice roared through the communication system. All security teams to emergency positions. We are under attack from within. Find the saboteurs immediately. But it was already too late. The humans had been planning this operation for 2 years, and they had chosen their moment perfectly. The Vorthak fleet was blind, confused, and about to discover that they had made a fatal mistake. They had not captured a helpless human prisoner. They had invited humanity's most dangerous weapon aboard their ship, a perfectly trained human mind with a carefully planned strategy. The next morning, Taemin was escorted back to the cargo bay where his ship waited. Science Officer Morden had brought several other Vorthak technicians to study human technology. They moved around the small vessel like curious children examining a new toy. "Your ship is very primitive," one technician said, running his 4 hands over the hull plates. "These metal alloys are so simple. How does it not break apart when traveling at high speed?" Taemin shrugged as if he didn't really understand. His own ship. "Human engineers build things to be cheap and easy to repair. We don't have advanced materials like you do." While the aliens examined the outside of his ship, Taemin was allowed to access the computer systems inside. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. As he powered up the navigation computer, his fingers moved in careful patterns across the control panel. To the watching Vorthak, it looked like he was simply starting up basic systems. In reality, Taemin was activating hidden communication protocols that had been built into his ship. These signals were so weak and so brief that alien sensors would not detect them. "See, this shows our patrol routes," Taemin explained, bringing up a star map on his screen. The routes he showed were real, but they were old paths that human forces no longer used. "We try to avoid areas where other species might be traveling." Morden studied the display carefully. "Your people are even more limited than we thought. These routes stay far from any important systems. Humans really are afraid of contact with superior races." While the science officer was focused on the navigation data, Taemin pressed a sequence of buttons that looked like routine system checks. Each button press sent out a tiny burst of radio energy. The bursts were so quick they seemed like normal computer noise. But hidden elsewhere on the ship, Lieutenant Kim Jae-ho heard those signals clearly. Jae-ho had been aboard the Vorthak vessel for 8 months, disguised as a reformed human prisoner who now worked in the ship's maintenance department. The Vorthak believed some humans could be trained to serve the Empire loyally. They were wrong. Jae-ho was cleaning air filters in a service corridor when he received Taemin's signal. The message was simple: Phase 2 active. Prepare network. Moving carefully through the ship's maintenance areas, Jae-ho made his way to a supply room in the lower decks. There, pretending to organize cleaning supplies, he used his own hidden communicator to send a message to the 3rd member of their team. Sergeant Choi Min-jun was working in the ship's armory, another job the Vorthak trusted to loyal human prisoners. The aliens thought humans were too weak and cowardly to ever turn weapons against their captors. This was another mistake that would cost them dearly. Min-jun received Jae-ho's signal while polishing energy rifles. His job gave him access to the ship's weapon systems and security protocols. Over the past months, he had carefully mapped every defensive system on the vessel. The 3 human operatives had been positioned on this ship long before Taemin's capture. The plan had taken 2 years to put into place. Human intelligence had identified this particular Vorthak vessel as carrying prototype stealth technology. Getting agents aboard had required patience and perfect timing. Back in the cargo bay, Taemin continued his performance as a helpful prisoner. He showed the aliens how human engines worked, explaining systems that were actually far more advanced than they appeared. The Vorthak were impressed by their prisoners' cooperation. "You are much more useful than most humans," Morden told him. "Perhaps when this war is over, you can work for the Empire. We always need servants who understand both human and Vorthak technology." "I would be honored to serve," Taemin replied, making his voice sound grateful and excited. "I never realized how much more advanced your people are. Humans have so much to learn from the Vorthak Empire." While this conversation continued, something else was happening in a hidden location far from the Vorthak fleet. Engineer specialist Yang Hye-jin sat in a monitoring station built inside a hollow asteroid. Her job was to track enemy fleet movements and provide intelligence support to field operations. The station was so well hidden that even advanced Vorthak sensors could not detect it. Hye-jin's screens showed the positions of 17 Vorthak ships moving in formation toward the Kepler system. This was much larger than any force the aliens had assembled before. Intelligence suggested they were planning something major. A weak signal reached her station, bounced through several relay points to avoid detection. When decoded, it contained detailed information about the Vorthak fleet's true mission. The aliens were not just moving toward human territory. They were planning to attack 3 colonies simultaneously using their new stealth technology. "Control, this is Monitor Station 7. Hye-jin spoke into her communicator. "I have updated intelligence on Vorthak fleet intentions. They're planning a coordinated strike on New Seoul, New Busan, and New Daegu colonies. Estimated time to target is 4 days." The response came from Dr. Park So-young back on Earth. "Understood, Monitor 7. Continue tracking. Our field assets are moving to Phase 3. Hye-jin acknowledged and returned to her screens. The Vorthak fleet was impressive, but they had made a crucial mistake. They thought they were being careful by maintaining communication silence. They didn't realize that one of their own ships was already compromised. Inside the Vorthak dreadnought, the 3 human agents began their final preparations. They had spent months learning the ship's layout, understanding its weaknesses and earning the trust of their captors. Now it was time to use that knowledge. Taemin was returned to his cell after the examination session. As he walked through the corridors, he noticed new details about the ship's security systems. Guard patterns had changed slightly. Some areas had additional sensors installed. The Vorthak were becoming more careful as they approached their destination. That night, alone in his cell, Taemin made more scratches on the wall. This time the coded message was longer and more complex. It contained detailed information about the ship's layout, security measures, and the location of the stealth device. Miles away, in different parts of the massive ship, Jae-ho and Min-jun read those scratches when they passed by during their work duties. The message told them everything they needed to know to complete their mission. The Vorthak believed they had 3 useful human servants and 1 valuable prisoner. In reality, they had invited 4 of humanity's most dangerous operatives into the heart of their fleet. Tomorrow, the aliens would discover just how wrong they had been about human capabilities. 3 days passed before Science Officer Zethrel Morden returned to Taemin's cell. The alien carried a collection of strange devices that hummed with energy. His forearms moved in complex patterns as he prepared his equipment. "Today we begin studying you properly," Morden said. His voice was softer than Captain Kelmore's, but still sounded like grinding crystals. "I want to understand how human minds work. Your species does things that make no sense to us." Taemin stood up slowly, making himself appear weak from days without proper food. The Vorthak had given him only water and a gray paste that tasted terrible. He stumbled a little as he walked to the force field barrier. "I'll help you if you promise not to hurt me," Taemin said. "I just want to go home to my family." Back on Earth, Dr. Park So-young sat in her office at Terran Command. She stared at the star charts showing Vorthak fleet movements. Her team had spent 2 years planning this mission. Every word Taemin spoke, every action he took, had been practiced hundreds of times. So-young knew that Taemin was now inside the enemy fleet. Her job was to monitor long-range communications and provide support when possible. She also had to prepare for what would happen when the real mission began. "Any word from Phoenix?" asked her assistant, Lieutenant Nam Soo-jin. "Nothing yet," So-young replied. "But that's good news. If the Vorthak suspected anything, we would have detected weapons fire by now. Taemin is doing exactly what we trained him to do." On the Vorthak ship, Morden led Taemin to the medical bay. The room was filled with crystal equipment that glowed with blue light. Strange machines lined the walls, their purposes unclear but clearly advanced beyond human technology. "Sit here," Morden instructed, pointing to a chair that looked like it was grown rather than built. "I will scan your brain while you answer questions. Do not try to lie. Our machines can detect false statements." Taemin sat down carefully. He knew the alien was partly bluffing. Human intelligence had learned that Vorthak technology was very good at reading physical responses but not perfect at understanding human psychology. The key was to tell the truth about unimportant things while hiding what really mattered. "What is your real job in the human military?" Morden asked as blue beams passed over Taemin's head. "I fly scout ships along the border regions," Taemin answered honestly. "I look for asteroid fields that might contain useful minerals. Sometimes I check on automated monitoring stations." This was completely true. Taemin had done exactly those jobs for 3 years before joining the Special Operations program. The Vorthak scanner would show he was being truthful. "What weapons do your ships carry?" Morden continued. "Basic plasma cannons and defense shields," Taemin replied. "Nothing very powerful. My ship was designed for running away, not fighting." Again, this was true about normal scout ships. Taemin's modified vessel had much more advanced systems, but those were hidden so well that even the Vorthak had not found them yet. For 2 hours, Morden asked questions about human technology, military positions, and colony locations. Taemin answered everything with information that was 3 months old or more. He mixed in small lies about human capabilities, always making human technology sound weaker than it really was. "Your people build very simple machines," Morden observed. "How do you expect to compete with races like ours who have mastered crystal engineering?" "We don't want to compete," Taemin said sadly. "We just want to be left alone. Humans are not warriors like the Vorthak. We prefer to explore and learn." This was exactly what the Vorthak wanted to hear. They believed humans were a peaceful race that would be easy to conquer. Every answer Taemin gave supported this idea. During the session, Taemin carefully studied everything in the medical bay. He memorized the locations of computer terminals and security cameras. He noticed that some of the machines connected directly to the ship's main computer network. If he could access one of those machines, he might be able to reach the ship's most important systems. "I want to examine your ship's computers tomorrow," Morden said as the session ended. "You will show me how human navigation systems work. This will help us understand your people better." "Of course," Taemin agreed. "I want to be helpful. Maybe, if I cooperate, you'll let me send a message to my family. They must be very worried about me." Morden made a sound that might have been laughing. "Perhaps if you prove useful enough." As they walked back to the detention area, Taemin noticed something important. The ship's corridors were marked with symbols that showed different sections. The engineering area was only 2 levels below, where they were now. More importantly, he saw crew members carrying equipment that looked like stealth technology components. That night, alone in his cell, Taemin used a simple code to scratch marks on the wall. To any guard who looked, they would appear to be random scratches made by a bored prisoner. But these marks contained a message for anyone who knew how to read them. The message said, "Target confirmed. Stealth device present. Beginning phase." 2. Somewhere else on the massive ship, those scratches were being read by eyes that understood their meaning. Taemin was not as alone as the Vorthak believed. The real mission was about to begin. Outside the ship's windows, stars moved slowly past as the fleet continued toward its destination. Captain Kelmore believed he was bringing a valuable prisoner to be questioned by Vorthak High Command. He had no idea that he was actually transporting the most dangerous human operative ever trained. In her office on Earth, Dr. So-Young received a coded transmission that lasted only 3 seconds. When decoded, it contained 2 words: "Package, delivered." She smiled for the first time in days. Taemin had successfully infiltrated the enemy fleet. Now the real work could begin. Commander Lee Taemin sat in the pilot seat of his small reconnaissance ship, watching the enemy fleet approach on his scanner. His heart beat steady and calm. Everything was going exactly as planned. The Vorthak patrol ships moved closer, their massive hulls blocking out the stars. Taemin pressed a button on his control panel. Red warning lights began flashing throughout his ship. The engines made loud grinding sounds. To anyone watching, it would look like his ship was badly damaged and about to break apart. "This is Commander," Lee Taemin of the Terran vessel Phoenix, he spoke into his radio, making his voice sound weak and scared. My engines have failed. I am drifting without power. Please help me. On the largest Vorthak ship, Captain Vorthak Kelmore heard the human's message. The alien captain stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body covered in sharp crystal plates that gleamed under the bridge lights. 4 powerful arms moved across his control panels as he studied the readings from the human ship. Another pathetic human, Kelmore said to his crew. His voice sounded like breaking glass. Look how easily their technology fails them. Bring that ship into our cargo bay. I want to question this human myself. The other Vorthak on the bridge made clicking sounds that meant they were laughing. They thought humans were weak creatures with poor technology. This human ship breaking down proved what they already believed. Taemin watched through his window as a blue beam surrounded his ship. The Vorthak tractor beam pulled him toward the massive alien dreadnought. The enemy ship was 5 times larger than anything humans had built. Its hull was covered in weapon systems and armor plating that sparkled like diamonds. As his ship was pulled inside the cargo bay, Taemin quietly pressed several hidden buttons. These commands would erase all the real data from his computers and replace it with fake information. The aliens would find exactly what he wanted them to find. The cargo bay doors closed with a deep rumble. Taemin could see dozens of Vorthak soldiers waiting for him. They carried energy weapons and wore thick armor. Their forearms made them look very dangerous. Taemin took a deep breath. He had trained for this moment for 3 years. Dr. Park, so young back on Earth, had prepared him for every part of this mission. Now he had to act like a frightened human pilot who had been caught by accident. The airlock on his ship opened with a hiss. Taemin stepped out slowly, holding his hands up to show he was not armed. He made his face look scared and confused. "Please don't hurt me," he said in a shaking voice. "I was just running patrol missions. I don't know anything important." "Captain," Kelmore walked into the cargo bay. His crystal armor caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. When he spoke, his voice echoed in the large space. "Human, you have entered Vorthak territory without permission. Your species thinks it can explore wherever it wants. Today you learn that the galaxy belongs to stronger races." Taemin made himself look even more frightened. "I got lost. My navigation system broke down. I never meant to come here. Please, let me go home." The captain's 4 eyes studied Taemin carefully. Humans were small compared to Vorthak. This one looked weak and harmless. His ship was old and poorly maintained. Everything suggested this was just a minor scout who had gotten lost. "Take him to detention cell 7, Kelmore ordered his soldiers. "Search his ship completely. I want to know everything about human patrol routes and military positions." 6 Vorthak soldiers surrounded Taemin. Their weapons stayed pointed at him as they marched him through the ship's corridors. Taemin kept his head down like he was ashamed, but his eyes were busy. He memorized every turn they made. He counted the number of doors they passed. He noticed which areas had more guards and which had fewer. The detention cell was small and cold. The walls were made of the same crystal material as Vorthak armor. A thin sleeping mat lay on the floor. There was a small toilet and sink in one corner. A force field covered the entrance instead of bars. "You will stay here until the captain decides what to do with you," one of the guards said. The force field activated with a blue glow. Taemin sat down on the sleeping mat and put his head in his hands like he was crying, but he was really thinking about everything he had seen. The ship's layout was starting to form a map in his mind. The guard rotations followed a clear pattern. The alien technology looked advanced, but it had weaknesses he could exploit. Hours passed. Taemin heard the ship's engines change their sound. They were moving toward something important. Through the small window in his cell, he could see other Vorthak ships joining their formation. This was a large fleet, much larger than human intelligence had reported. A Vorthak officer came to his cell. This alien was smaller than the others, with smoother crystal plates. 4 thin arms moved quickly as he operated a portable computer. "I am Science Officer Zethral Morden," the alien said. "I study other species. Humans are very interesting to us. Your biology is so different from ours? Taemin looked up with fake hope in his eyes. Are you going to help me get home? That depends on how helpful you are, Morden replied. Tell me about your ship's technology. How do human computers work? What kind of weapons do your people build? I don't know much about weapons, Taemin lied. I was just a scout pilot. They never told me military secrets. I can show you how my navigation computer works if you want. This was exactly what Taemin wanted. If he could get access to his ship again, he could begin the real mission. The Vorthak thought they had captured a valuable prisoner, but they had actually invited their greatest threat right into the heart of their fleet. Morden made notes on his computer. Yes, I think examining your technology will be very useful. Captain Kelmore wants to understand human capabilities. You will help us, and perhaps we will let you live. As the science officer left, Taemin allowed himself a small smile. The Vorthak were proud and confident. They thought humans were weak because human ships looked simple compared to their crystal technology. They had no idea that human simplicity hid incredible complexity. The fleet continued moving through space toward its secret destination. In a few days, they would reach the staging area for their planned attack on human colonies. But by then, Taemin would have already begun changing the course of the war. He closed his eyes and reviewed his mission parameters one more time. Phase 1 was complete. The aliens had taken the bait. Now Phase 2 could begin.